Hello learners, this is Miss Mtizira. Welcome to grade 9 Social Sciences History lesson. Today we are going to learn about the Great Depression. We are going to pay particular attention to the causes of the Great Depression. Here I've made a list of the most agreed upon causes of the Great Depression. But before we look into the causes, we are going to define the Great Depression. What was the Great Depression? The Great Depression was a period of economic problems, economic challenges, or economic calamities in America. It started in America but later spread to the rest of the world. As some scholars have put it to say, if America catches a cold, the whole world freezes or the whole world sneezes. This simply means that as a great power or as a state that is regarded to have a stable economy, events that happen in America might have a positive or a negative impact on the rest of the world. So, here is a list of the causes of the Great Depression. There was an equal distribution of wealth, high tariffs and borders, overproduction in industry and agriculture, the 1928 presidential election, farm crisis, the Federal Reserve monetary policy, the stock market crash, and the financial panic. So here is just an illustration of the causes of the Great Depression that we have listed in the previous slide. So prior the Great Depression, or before the period of the Great Depression, that is in the early 1920s, because the Great Depression began in the late 1920s, that is around 1928. It was a prosperous time in America, or it was a time where the economy of America was regarded to be performing well or to be booming. But not everyone experienced this prosperous time or enjoyed this prosperous time. We can see that there were some people who were still facing economic challenges. However, those who felt that this was a prosperous time in America were able to experience this because there was a system of installment buying which was introduced in America, and this allowed people in America to buy some goods or some items that were regarded as luxury goods. For example, cars and radios. They bought these goods using the credit system, whereby they could get these goods on credit and pay back in small amounts over long periods of time. However, farmers or people in America did not experience this, as they were in a depression throughout this whole period. Here is a picture showing rural poverty in America in the 1920s. I think the picture is self-explanatory. On the other side, people were enjoying life, as we can see this lady and this gentleman partying, which means that they had extra money or they had extra income to spend on luxuries. So this is how different things were during this time. But however, an equal distribution of wealth is one of the causes, or is one of the factors that led to the Great Depression. So to explain this, the economy of America during the 1920s grew by billions, but however, it was not distributed evenly, as only 1% of the American population received a 75% increase in their income, yet the larger part of America's population, which constituted of 99%, only received a 9% increase in their disposable income. So at the end of the day, 80% of Americans had no savings at all. So here is a chart that explains the uneven or the uneven distribution of wealth in America. This light part is the 1% population that received 75% increase in their income, yet this black or dark part represents the 99% of American population which only saw a 9% increase in their income. So this eventually led to the Great Depression. In addition, there were high tariffs and war debts during this period. At the end of World War I, European nations owed over $10 billion to America. So during this World War I, the European powers borrowed money from America so that they would be strong at the war front, but during the late 1920s, it was now the time for these European powers to pay back the money to America. America was now demanding its money back. But these European countries' economies were devastated by war and they were not in a position to pay back the money. So they decided to trade with America, whereby they would export goods from Europe to America so that they would at least get money to pay back America. However, this was difficult because of the Fordney-McCumber Act, which was introduced in 1922, which passed high tariffs on all products trying to enter America from other countries. So these other nations now retaliated by also imposing high tariffs on goods coming from America trying to enter their countries. And at the end of the day, this resulted in the decline of trade. Furthermore, there was overproduction in industry and in factories because prior to the Great Depression, the period whereby the economy was seen to be performing or booming well, it encouraged these industries to produce more goods as they anticipated that the market was enough or the market was large enough for their goods. But this was not the case, as 99% of the American population still didn't have money, and this led to goods over flooding the market with no one buying them. This was the same scenario in farms. There was overproduction in farms, yet the market was so small because people didn't have money. So at the end of the day, there was surpluses and farm incomes dropped throughout the 1920s. Even the price of farmland fell from $69 per acre in 1920 to $31 per acre in 1930. So here I've also made a chart whereby you can see the sharp decline in prices of various products from American farms. We can just take a look at corn. In 1912 to 1913, it was costing at least 56 cents, but just at the beginning or in the early years of the Great Depression, that is 1932 to 1933, it fell to 20 cents. So this is how bad things were. In addition, the 1928 presidential contest, which was between Herbert Hoover and Charles Curtis, is also one of the causes of the Great Depression. This contest saw Herbert Hoover winning the elections. So when Herbert Hoover won the elections, he promised that he was going to maintain the prosperity and even promote it further that was in America during this time. But when he got into power, this is not what he did. So this is Herbert Hoover in 1928, when he still encouraged, or when he still had the notion of promoting prosperity in America. he was quoted to have said, "We in America today are nearer to the final triumph over poverty than ever before in the history of any land. The poorhouse is vanishing from among us." This is in 1928. However, scholars argue that he did not do anything to make sure that the poorhouse vanished from America, but instead, 2 years later, he was caught to have said something which showed that he didn't do much to improve the situation in America. He was caught to have said, "I do not believe that the power and duty of the general government ought to be extended to the relief of individual suffering. The lesson should be constantly enforced that though the people support the government should not support the people." So, what we're saying here, he as the president represents the government. So he was saying the government will not support the people. So this is another cause of the Great Depression, because when Herbert Hoover came into power, he did nothing to promote the American economy. So at the end of the day, a lot of things happened, and farm owners even lost their land because they couldn't manage things. Then in 1913, the Federal Reserve monetary bank was introduced in America. It was created in 1913 to help stabilize the economy by establishing a central banking system in America. So it was mainly introduced to deal with bank panics. But at the beginning of the Great Depression, this Federal Reserve bank didn't manage the situation. It did not address issues, monetary issues that were there during this period. So scholars argue that the idleness of the Federal Reserve monetary system worsened the situation. So at the end of the day, in 1928, there was a stock market crash and financial panic, whereby people who had assets now were stuck in between selling their assets to get value, yet their prices were not reasonable to the market, because the market or the people didn't have money to buy the things. So this eventually resulted in the stock market crash. Thank you.